Welcome to Mrs. Law's class. In this video, we're going to take a look at subtracting rational numbers, both in decimal form and in fraction form. Now recall that subtracting can be thought of as adding the opposite. So therefore, every subtraction problem can be rewritten as an addition problem. Now before we take a look at decimals and fractions, let's recall how to subtract integers. So here we have 4 examples, and we're going to go through each one. And we have first one here is -1 minus 3, or -1 take away 3. So recall that taking away 3 is the same as adding. So we're going to change the minus sign to it, plus, and then we're going to take away 3. So now we have -1 plus -3. So -1 plus -3, we're going to start at -1 on the number line, and then we're going to add -3. So we're actually going to go more into the negatives. So negative plus negative will give us even more negative. And here we have -4. All right, in our next example, number 2, we have -1 taking away -2. So minus or take away -2 is the same as adding +2. So again, this time we start at -1. But this time we're going to add 2, so we're going to go in the right direction, and we end up at 1. Now recall that when we were taking a look at adding integers, we're going to take, because both signs are different, one's a negative, one's a positive, we can think of it as subtracting. So we can think of this as 2 minus 1, which equals 1. All right, the next one here we have 1 minus -3. So again, we have 2 negatives side by side, so we can change this to be plus, and now it makes it easy, and we have 1 plus 3, which is equal to 4. We don't even need the number line for this one. All right, the very last one here, we have 1 minus 2, or 1 take away 2, so that's the same as going 1 plus -2. So starting at 1, if we add -2, we're going to go backwards to the left, and we get to -1. Now again, we can think of this as 2 numbers with different signs. We have a 1 and a -2. So remember, when the signs are different, we can think of it as subtracting. Take the bigger number, regardless of the sign, and we're going to go 2 minus 1, and that's 1. So that's why the answer is 1, but because we have more negatives, it will be -1. All right, so let's now go into our decimal examples. So here we have -1.4 minus 2.3. So to make it easy for us, let's say that we're going to change the a minus to a plus, and then we're going to put a minus sign beside the 2.3. So now I have -1.4 plus -2.3. And recall that means that because both are negative, we can simply add the 2 numbers together. So here we have 7, bring the decimal down, and then 1 plus 2 is 3. So we have 3.7, but because we have negative plus negative, we're going to have more negative to be -3.7. Okay, let's take a look at number 2. So here we have minus a negative. So again, we have 2 negatives side by side. So we're going to change them to both positives. So now what we have is we're adding a negative number to a positive number. And remember, when the signs are different, we take the larger number, place it on the top, and we're going to subtract the smaller number. So we have 8 minus 3, which is 5. Bring our decimal down, and then 6 minus 2 is 4. So now we need to go back and check what this is. So we have -2.3, we have positive 6.8. So we actually have more positives. So therefore our answer is going to be positive 4.5. All right, in the next one here, we have 7.5 minus 4.9. We have a bigger number minus a smaller number already. So we just simply have to do this one. So we go 7.5 minus 4.9. And we need to borrow 1 from the 7, so this becomes 6, and then 5 becomes 15. So 15 minus 9 is 6. Bring down our decimal, and then 6 minus 4 is 2. So this one's a straightforward one where we get 2.6. Now the last one here, we have 5.6 minus 9.4. So you have a smaller number minus a larger number. You can also think of this as 5.6 plus negative 9.4. So in order to do this one, we have a positive number adding a negative number. So we're going to subtract. We take the larger number, place it on the top, and we're going to subtract our smaller number. So we need to borrow. So we get 9 becomes 8. And now we have 14. 14 minus 6 is 8. Bring down my decimal. And then 8 minus 5 is 3. All right, so in this case, we have a positive plus a negative, and we actually have more negatives because we have negative 9.4 compared to our positive 5.6. So in this case, my answer will be negative because we have more negatives, and they'll be negative 3.8. Okay, so this is how we subtract decimal numbers. So now let's go on to subtracting fractions. So for these ones here, remember that when we subtract or even add fractions, we have to have a common denominator. In this first example here, we already have a common denominator, so we just need to subtract across. So you have negative 5 minus 6 or negative 5. If you'd like to change it to a plus, it's plus negative 6, and that would be negative 11 over 7, since the denominators are the same. Now in example 2, the denominators are different. So this time we will need to get a common denominator, and the common denominator is 56. So we're going to multiply the first number by 8 over 8, and we're going to multiply the second fraction by 7 over 7. So 8 times negative 5 is negative 40, and then minus 21. And since the denominators are the same, I'm going to place it all over 56. So negative 40 minus 21, or negative 40 plus negative 21, is negative 61 over 56. And if you would like to change it to a mixed number, we get negative 1, and then we have 5 over 56. All right, the next one's quite nice because we have a minus and a negative. So when we have two negatives side by side, remember we can change them to both to be plus. So now I just have 2/8 plus 3/4. And to get the common denominator, we see that we have 8 and 4 goes into 8. So we're going to times the second fraction by 2. So now I have 2 plus, and then we have 3 times 2, which is 6. And our common denominator of 8 in the bottom. And then 2 plus 6 is 8 over 8. And that reduces nicely to just 1. All right, now the last one, like when we were adding, in our previous video when we were adding adding fractions, we need to change these fractions, or these mixed numbers, into improper fraction. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this to plus minus to make it a little bit nice. So remember, we're going to go 5 times 3, which is 15, and then plus 2, which is 17. Now remember, when we're multiplying, we ignore the negative sign when we're changing to improper fraction. So this becomes negative 17 over 5 plus negative, we're going to go 10 times 2 plus 3, and that's going to be 23 over 10. So we need to multiply the first fraction by 2 to get a common denominator of 10. And negative 17 times 2 is negative 34 minus 23, all over the common denominator of 10. And then negative 34 minus 23 is negative 57, all over 10. And if you want to change it to a mixed number, it's going to be negative 5 and then 7/10. All right, to finish off this lesson, let's do a word problem here. So the temperature in Vancouver is 5.8 degrees Celsius. In Yellowknife, it is 9 degrees Celsius colder, which means that it's going to be more negative. So what is the temperature in Yellowknife? So we know that the temperature in Vancouver is 5.8. And to find the temperature in Yellowknife, it is 9 degrees colder. So colder means that we're going to subtract. So we have our 9 and our 5.8. So we're going to go 5.8 minus 9, and then that will give us our answer. Now remember that this is the same as adding a negative. So we have a positive number and we have a negative number. So recall that when we do this, we want to take our larger number and we're going to subtract our smaller number. So 9 minus 5.8. So this is 9.0. So we need to borrow 8 from here. This becomes 10. And then 10 minus 8 is 2. Bring down my decimal. And then 8 minus 5 is 3. Now remember that it's 5.8 adding more negative. And the negative number is bigger. So therefore, in this case, we're going to have a negative 3.2. So what is the temperature in Yellowknife? We would then say the temperature in Yellowknife is negative 3.2 degrees Celsius. So always remember to answer your question with a sentence. And that's how we do one of our word problems, and you can try the rest on your own.